Hey, how's it going? It's your boy ChiefsRaysBolts here alongside, as always, Casey, A's Raiders Sub Sharks, partners in crime here. You know we love bringing you these videos, this type of content where it's just unedited, unfiltered, like just say it how it is, speak our minds for 30 minutes to an hour straight, depending on how long we can talk for. So what we're doing here today is obviously the second round, as promised, of the Major League Baseball postseason. We have the division series at hand for the next week. Let's start over. Let's go back to the wild card. Let's talk about those results real quick, right? So I'm gonna save the best one for last, and that was obviously the greatest series of all time, Rays Guardians. But we'll start over. We'll go to Philadelphia in St. Louis. Were you surprised that Philadelphia won this series?
Absolutely. I mean, honestly, who wasn't? Like, yeah, Philly's a good team. They made it to the playoffs for a reason. Their pitching is pretty good. They got Wheeler, of course, as their ace. But, yeah, I mean, I was very surprised. Their offense really came out strong. You know, that second game, I thought, okay, maybe St. Louis could grab it back towards the end. It was sentimental and cool to see Yadier Molina and Pujols make their final appearances in Major League Baseball. But I feel like the Cardinals ran out of steam. I feel like, you know, similar to the Rays, they had good pitching, but, you know, their offense sort of just ran out at the end there. But, yeah, I was definitely surprised. I think Philadelphia is a team that, you know, sort of like Seattle, didn't totally expect them to make it here. But, you know, as a team that was good towards the end of the season, they could make a splash. But, yeah, how about you? Were you surprised with this outcome?
Absolutely. I think we both predicted St. Louis to win the series on the original stream, the wild card preview.
Yeah.
The Phillies... I mean, yeah, giant surprise. Giant surprise. Haven't made the playoffs since 2011, which, again, I didn't realize that until a couple of days ago. Haven't made the playoffs since 2011, yet here they are, and they just swept the Cardinals, who were favored in this series. So, absolutely, I see it as a surprise. I did not really watch any of the games at all because I was so, you know, the Rays situation. I was not in the mood to go watch other games, but from what I saw on the MLB app, you know, it's just Phillies prevailed, and it was a surprise to me because I expected St. Louis to come on top.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, for Philadelphia, similar story to the Mariners. I sort of brought this up, you know, long playoff drought. They have, you know, the fans behind them. They were on the road. You know, it's not easy to play in St. Louis. Of course, their fans show out and, you know, show up. And, yeah, I mean, like I said, you know, sort of like what you said, I wasn't totally paying attention to these games, maybe as close as some of the American League matchups or, you know, of course, that great Padres-Mets series. But, you know, still, nonetheless, you have to acknowledge the fact that Philadelphia is fighting. And they're, you know, like I said before, they're hot towards the end of the season. They have good pitching. You know, hopefully their offense for them can prevail in some of the later games. I mean, you know, Castellanos is a very good player who's been making an impact. And yeah, I think overall, like, their lineup is pretty deep. They got Bryce Harper. Like, they have good players there. I just feel like the reason why they haven't been able to make the playoffs, you know, in the past decade is because of gelling. And I feel like this is the first team in a while I've seen where they have great pitching and then their lineup from top to bottom. You got Schwarber too, top to bottom is pretty deep and pretty powerful. I think Schwarber, Castellanos, and Harper, that's three of the, you know, very good home run hitters in Major League Baseball. So, yeah.
I mean, they do have the greatest player of all time on the roster, Nick Castellanos, of course. I mean, I've got kind of a... I love the whole Castellanos meme. It's a little bit disappointed that he was on the injured list from the day that the Queen passed. But anyways, yeah, I mean, it's a great lineup they have over there in Philadelphia. And like you said, they fight, and they're called the Fighting Phils for a reason. Fighting Phillies, like one of the other. Yeah. They're nicknamed that for the reason, but... yeah, I mean, I was just a little surprised. You know, St. Louis has all that experience at hand. They had a good roster, and ultimately the Phillies just came out on top, and they will play. And I'm using past tense when the reality is that we're filming this after the first day of the ALDS. But they do play now, the Atlanta Braves. So going on to the next series, and you mentioned a little bit, was the San Diego New York Mets series. The only wild card series to go the distance.
Yeah, absolutely a surprise here. Now, maybe not as big as a surprise as the other series or the Seattle series. Talk about in great detail in a moment. But yeah, I mean, I just think it's absolutely the most baseball thing ever that a team, 101 wins, looking like a perennial contender, in this really the whole way through the regular season until they started to choke and decline. The New York Mets, 3 aces. How many teams can say, I mean, I guess the Rays could say this maybe, but how many teams can say they have 3 aces pitching, at the highest level, very, very good, borderline Cy Young level, of course, DeGrom, Scherzer, and Bassett. And, all 3 of them really didn't do that well. I mean, I guess DeGrom had probably the best performance, but Max Scherzer, 6 earned runs in the first game. I mean, that is unheard of, really. I mean, from Scherzer, his entire career has been dominant in the playoffs. Bassett, I know the guy too well. He's an ace player, and he wasn't always the best pitcher, but he's still, an all-star level player. The Mets just, disappointed their fans. The Padres were in this series absolutely, blowing me away. How many homers they have in the first game? 4, I think. Grisham, it was 4. I think Grisham hit 1. Grisham had, I think, 2 homers in the series and 8 hits, which was crazy. Grisham, he's more of a role player in my opinion, but he had a great series. Josh Bell hit a homer. There was plenty of guys that made it, a huge impact on this, and their pitching was good too. Joe Musgrove allowing 1 hit, and the entire Mets team just had 1 hit in that game. I believe it was the final game of the series. So yeah, very much, pure choke by the Mets, and I can't believe that happened.
It was a ridiculous number, something like 10, 11, 12 games or days this entire season where they didn't lead the division. Do you know the number? Because I'm thinking of, I don't remember what it was. It was a very, very low number of days. I mean, practically, in short, the Mets led their division pretty much 150 games out of the 162-game season, and then just absolutely blew it the final stretch. Let the Braves come back, and like you said, 101 wins throughout the wild card, and you have people like at ESPN who are like, "Oh my God, the Mets are the first team in Major League Baseball history to lose in the wild card round with 100 wins." It's like, is this the first year with added seeds in the wild card? So that's pretty meaningless, but it's a very Mets thing to do, to have a season like that. I viewed them, honestly, as a World Series contender coming into this. I thought that they were a pretty complete team, a fantastic pitching staff. Like you said, Cy Young caliber like Jake DeGrom and, Max Scherzer and just what a fantastic team they had around them. The offense had been tearing it up. San Diego coming in and upsetting them. Game 3, 4-0 shutout. The Mets' bats just went silent. You had that whole controversy in the middle there with Musgrove getting his ears checked out by the umpires or whatever. I don't know what that was all about, but clearly wasn't cheating if that was what they concluded. I'm sure they would have figured something out, but Mets. Yeah. I was rooting for the Padres just because I like to root for teams, much like the Rays, teams that have never won before, teams that are playing to add a little bit of history to their short history, on the resume to their franchise. Because, you got the Rays, been around 25 years, never won a World Series, very small resume. And I see the Padres, although they've been around a lot longer than the Rays, still a pretty short resume. They haven't really done a whole lot in their history. And so that's why I like to root for teams like the Padres, teams that have never won the World Series. And so I was happy to see that they beat the Mets, but also surprised at the same time.
Yeah, of course. And I agree with you. I was rooting for San Diego too. Of course, their manager, Bob Melvin, was longtime manager of the A's. And I mean, on the flip side, the Mets do have a lot of former A's players too, and that's sort of how I've been rooting for teams in the playoffs. But San Diego, to your point, I mean, they've been around this is their 53rd season, I think, and they've never won a World Series. Of course, they have history, but I feel like now is sort of their peak. And to your point also, I feel like the only team I thought was stopping the Mets in the National League was the Dodgers. I thought if any team was going to stop them, it would be the Dodgers, and even that would be a very big test for Los Angeles. So yeah, the Mets blew it. And I mean, I think a lot of people, myself sort of included, towards the end of the season when they choked that lead in the division, I thought, okay, the Mets tend to screw things up. So, you kind of can't call them a World Series contender yet. And then, you know, this comes around and, you know, it just proves our points. It's the, you know, to your point also, like the most Mets thing ever. Like it is just the fact that they choke that division lead and then this, you know, they're at home as well. You know, it's a disappointment. And they have a lot of free agents too. I know they have a huge payroll, but Edwin Jackson, or Edwin Diaz, sorry. Edwin Diaz is a free agent. Of course, they're, you know, great closer. They have a lot of other free agents too. So who knows what's going to come from New York, but for now their season's over.
Yeah, just a bunch of what ifs going into the offseason here, what they will do for their team, see what they can do to improve. But it's going to be hard to retain the roster that they had this year. Moving on, we'll go to Seattle and the Blue Jays, and oh boy. Oh boy. In typical Toronto sports fashion, they absolutely blow it in the first round.
Man, that was an absolute. I mean, okay, game one, like I can understand the jitters.
Channeling their inner Maple Leafs. That's all this is. Just channeling their inner Maple Leafs. Yeah. Can't get out of the first round.
Game two was comical, like that. You know, what was that? A 3-run double? I mean, you know, it sucks that, you know, for Springer he got hurt, but like someone's got to make that play or at least prevent that ball from, you know, being dropped and just, you know, that all that stuff happening. It was so botched. And I mean, congrats to Seattle. I mean, they must feel, those fans, I know how loyal they are. I know how starving they've been for playoffs. And
20
years. That, yeah, like it's just the fact that they, you know, broke the drought and then were able to win their first playoff series in that duration in this way, beating a team that, you know, by record was a lot better. It's crazy. And man, Toronto, that's, you know, I think it's up for debate. What's the bigger choke, them or the Mets? But I think it was a pretty big choke. What, 9-1? Was it 9-1 in game two, I believe, or something?
I don't think it was that big. I thought it was like 8-2. But regardless, still a remarkable lead that in no way should have been blown in a playoff game. Like, okay, yeah, it happens in the regular season all the time. You see teams like blow these kind of leads, and it's just the bullpen. And these are lower end teams that usually commit this. It's just teams that don't have very strong arms in the bullpen. But I mean, this is playoff baseball here. This is the best of the best we're talking. And you're going to give up that gigantic lead and let Seattle win a sweep. A sweep. Like, I was expecting the Blue Jays to sweep, maybe. Maybe win in 3, not the other way around.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like the Blue Jays, I feel like every team in the wild card we saw had good pitching, like, to some degree, right? Like, I don't think any of these teams got here solely based on offense. And, you know, for Toronto, they have Kevin Gausman in game 2, and, you know, he didn't do great, but he, you know, provided a decent lead for Toronto, and they take him out, and all of a sudden the game's gone at that point. I mean, Kevin Gausman, he sort of set up the team for failure, leaving at the wrong time, but Seattle was getting all this momentum. And of course they had Alek Manoah in game 1, who did horrible as far as I'm concerned as well. I mean, allowing all those runs in the first inning. Seattle won this series in the first inning of game 1. That J-Rod, you know, was it a double, and then Cal Raleigh coming up, and their whole beginning of their lineup setting the tone for the series in game 1 in the first inning. It ended it from there. There was no coming back from Toronto. They choked it at that moment. I think, you know, the momentum from Seattle's bats and their pitching was the reason for this. You know,
they are one of the hungriest teams in the playoffs, and you could see it when you watch them. You can just sense that hunger that this young squad has for Seattle. I mean, they want to prove everybody wrong. They want to lift that weight of 21 years off their shoulders, and they're doing so in remarkable fashion, sweeping the Blue Jays, who were favorited in this series, to my knowledge, in the wild card round. And so it's remarkable, and I'm really, really pulling for the Mariners here. I think if there's any team that I have to root for remaining, it is Seattle. Like, I'm pulling for them to go all the way. But, you know, they're going to go on and play Houston, and I guess we can go over a little bit of today's game for them once we're done with all the wild card talk. But good for them, just good for them.
I totally agree.
And another thing I saw recently was they're scheduled to play at the same time as the Seahawks home game. So the Seahawks are considering moving their game to an earlier slot, which would be like in the morning for them. For the locals, it'd be like a morning game. And so they're considering it so that way everybody can, watch both teams and not have them overlap.
Yeah. Wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
They're considering it.
Unity.
But, yeah. We're gonna go on and get out of the way the greatest series of all time here. It's the Rays and the Guardians, and this is terrible, so bad. Oh my god! All right, so Casey, what'd you make of this series? As a fan of neither of these teams, I gotta know what'd you make of this series, dude?
I was pulling for the Rays, for the small market vibe and sort of what you said earlier. They'd never won a World Series, and obviously for your sanity. But I thought, you were very correct in the preview. The fact that the Rays bats had just died at the end of the regular season.
No, the team too damn well, dude.
And it's such a shame because the pitching, they won 2-1, or they lost 2-1 in game 1, and then lost 1-0 in like 15 innings in game 2. That's great pitching. I mean, that is, 24 innings of baseball, only allowing 3 runs. That's very, very good. I mean, of course, the issue being, not having the bats is also a huge issue. I feel like it's sad, honestly. I feel bad for your guys' pitchers. I mean, Corey Kluber, I don't really blame him. It was really ballsy for the Rays to have a guy like that come out, against his former team in the late, game. I don't blame Kluber for that home run at the end of the game, but I feel like the Rays had opportunity. Like they could have won this series, and I'm sure that's why it hurts for you as a fan, because they very much could have won this series if their bats woken up. But I think, like you said, they were in a slump to end the season. They couldn't come out of that slump. It was too late. I think Cleveland, is a good team, but I don't expect, the Guardians to put up much of a fight against the Yankees, considering they didn't really have a great series either. Their pitching did great. I mean, their pitching was really good in this series, allowing 1 run. Of course, Shane Bieber, with a very good performance in game 1. But at the same time, I mean, the Rays, it's unfortunate they lost, because I think, they had opportunity, but it was just their offense really couldn't make anything of it. So, yeah.
You talk about slumping leading into the playoffs, so let me tell you this. The Rays end their season on a 7-game losing streak. I mean, when was the last time something like that happened, where a team is just that bad going into the playoffs? I was saying I didn't think the Rays deserved to be a playoff team. I think you could have put any other of the AL teams, well, maybe besides, like, I don't know, Texas or something. Yeah. I don't know, one of those bottom feeder AL teams. You could put any other of them in, and they would have gotten more hits than the Rays did in this series, maybe even more runs. I'm sorry, and you talk about how great the pitching was. There's no denying that. The pitching was great on both sides. That's why it was a defensive battle between the two. But I'm sorry, I don't care how elite a pitching staff is. If you're a playoff team, it shouldn't take you 24 innings to finally have more than 1 hit in the same inning. That's what the Rays did. They never had more than 1 goddamn hit in the same inning until the last inning of the series, the 15th inning of Game 2. They only had 1 run in this entire series, and it was on a Jose Siri solo shot in Game 1. Like that, I'm sorry. It was so beyond predictable. It was so predictable. If you're a Rays fan like me, you have zero optimism going into the playoffs, saying how you're ending the regular season. No hope. Your bats have not been good since August. You've been getting just really it hasn't been close. Obviously, the only reason the Rays even got here was through the pitching staff. Shane McClanahan in Game 1 played unbelievably. His offense didn't help him. Game 2, you had Tyler Glasnow coming off of Tommy John, his 3rd start in over a year, played even better than Shane McClanahan. Played one of the nastiest outings he's ever played. Doesn't matter. Right. The Rays even put, because if they would have won that game, if they would have been blowing Cleveland out by the time 6th or 7th rolls around, they're not going to use Drew Rasmussen out of the bullpen. They're going to start him the next game. No, they pull out Rasmussen early, and so now even if we do win this game, he's not going to start. a game 3, and it would have to be Jeffrey Springs. The Rays were pulling out their best bullpen arms left and right just to hopefully maybe we can win this terrible game 1-0, right? Game 1 was actually the shortest playoff game since 1999. It was 2 hours and 17 minutes long, went by crazy fast. Well, Game 2 made up that lost time because 5 hours, 15 innings, 1 run, and it's on a walk-off Cleveland home run in the 15th inning. It's just these bats, the offense of the Rays is beyond pathetic. They are terrible. And I said it in my recap. It was funny because I was every 2 or 3 innings I'd record like a 30-second update, and then in the 15th, just so happens when I'm recording my update, the walk-off happens, and you see my reaction. There's no part of me that's like disappointed or sad or mad. It's just, this is what I expected. The offense is terrible. They've been terrible. In fact, this was the first time in my life where a team of mine makes the playoffs and I have no hope. There's zero optimism inside of me. Zero. Like, okay, so every time one of our teams makes the playoffs, obviously deep down there's that glimmer of hope. Like, oh, well, if this happens, something goes our way, we can make a magical run out of this, maybe a Cinderella story, right? And that's if you're a bottom feeder team in the playoffs. None of that from me. Absolutely none of that. It was just, from the very beginning, I was like, we're going to be lucky if we even beat Cleveland. And then somehow if we do that, the Yankees will sweep us. Our offense is terrible. And besides Wander Franco, everybody else can go. I don't give a shit at this point. Changes have to be made, Rays. Changes have to be made. They're on a small payroll every single year. You and I both know this story. You and I both feel this story. It's the same thing every year. And then you get great organizations like the Rays that can make nobody's competitive, and you can form these playoff runs consistently. And then when you have years like this where the fans don't expect anything because of how terrible the offense is, well, then the Rays can just say, oh, well, look, we made the playoffs, we're competitive, so we don't have to make any changes in the offseason. That's just the sad reality of small market baseball, okay? And I wanted to bring this up at some point because this is a very, very reasonable argument, and I wanted to get your take on it, okay? So I'm talking baseball with my father the other day, and he proposes this argument. He says, and to which, by the way, I completely agree with his argument.
Yeah.
Us baseball fans, we often like to diminish records such as like Barry Bonds or Jose or Canseco or whatever, or just players who use steroids, right, performance-enhancing drugs, to their competitive advantage. That is the only reason they're taking them, to their competitive advantage. So why is it in baseball there's no salary cap? The Yankees, the Dodgers, they get to spend 4, 5, 6 times the amount of money that these small market teams do. They get to open up their wallets in free agency. At the trade deadlines, they just open up their wallets like it's nothing because they have that ability. They're in big markets. There's no salary cap in baseball. So they open up their wallets for nothing more than competitive advantage. So the argument is, how are players using steroids to their competitive advantage? How is that any different than big market teams opening their wallets to their competitive advantage due to no salary cap? Is there a difference? Because honestly, to me, it's the same thing. It's the same thing. It's just, it's not fair. And there needs to be a salary cap at some point. That's just the way I see it.
Absolutely agree. I think it's completely unfair. I mean, at least, for the bare minimum of a salary floor. And I think, for teams like the Rays, like the 2010s Oakland A's, for me personally, it's a similar story. They play great in the regular season and can't, their offense or pitching, one of the two is falling apart. And that's all because of the payroll. You can see right through it. Teams with bigger payrolls, can sign players that will last through the postseason. Being a great baseball player, more of it is about, performing when it matters than anything. And I think for, teams, it's unfortunate. A lot of times our players are inexperienced, or, they just simply can't rise. So yeah, I agree. I think, it's completely unjust. I think, you can use that example very well of performance enhancing drugs to the point that, teams will do whatever they want to do, players will do whatever they want to do to be better, and the MLB has no limit on it. And like you said, it's a crying shame. I just think that we need change to happen, and that would eliminate a lot of these series that are considered boring, because I think for teams that aren't as competitive with payrolls, they just run out of steam in the playoffs.
It's hard to take baseball seriously. It really is. When you have the Dodgers and Yankees guaranteed in the playoffs every single year. Well, fans of these big market teams who will obviously disagree with this statement, obviously disagree with this argument because it benefits their team, well, they'll tell you, oh, well, we don't win the World Series every year. Yeah, but you make the playoffs. You make a run every year. So many other teams struggle to make the playoffs because they don't have the ability to open up their wallets like you do. I think the whole damn thing is ridiculous, and every year I become less and less interested in paying attention to baseball. Obviously, I still do it at the end of the day because I gotta support the Rays, I gotta support the Tampa team. I have to do it, right? And I've grown up with this team. I've got that strong emotional connection to them. I can't just let them go because of a salary cap, but it makes it less fun every year as a baseball fan. I take it less seriously every year. I look less forward to it every year, and it's the sad reality. It's not just because my team isn't as good as others. It's because the way I see it, the league has failed to make the game fair. That's it. Every other league, there's salary caps. Every other league, any team can win in any given season, and you're not surprised if an underdog ends up winning the damn thing, right? Like, you're not surprised. In baseball, if it's it's the same 4, 5, 6 teams making that final four every year. You got the Braves, the Dodgers, the Yankees, the Astros. Those four notably the most. And it becomes tiring after a certain. Once you just get to a certain point where it's tiring and you're bored of seeing it and you take it less seriously. That's the point that I'm at right now, and I'm still numb from last year's Rays loss to the Red Sox and the ALDS. I actually just realized that this season I went to the least amount of Rays games that I have gone to in over 5 years. It is so hard for me to enjoy the sport when it's the same damn thing every year and there's no fixing in sight.
Yeah, of course. Like, I definitely agree with everything you said. And, I thought of two things. For one, a team like the Mariners, for example, making the playoffs, sure, it's very exciting because they've, missed the playoffs for 21 years, but the Mariners aren't much different than teams like, like the Rangers, teams like towards the bottom that don't really make the playoffs much, in the sense that they're a surprise. They're, a change of scenery from those, typical notorious teams like the Yankees, Braves, Astros, Dodgers, like, Red Sox on occasion. And you have to think, MLB expanding the wild card. Do you think, possibly that was because of how boring it is to just see the same teams in the playoffs every year? I mean, think about other sports, particularly like the NFL, the NBA, right? Like, last year, the Bengals making the playoffs was very strange, and it was really exciting to see them go all the way almost. And, NBA, and I know you're not the biggest basketball fan, but the same thing occurs. You have teams kind of come out of nowhere, and, there's an expanded play-in sort of wild card style. And so, yeah, I think the MLB is attempting to repair the damage it's done by, having very limited playoff spots, which have been, of course, with no salary cap, have led to, these same 5, 6 teams making it every single year. And so I think expanding it, it was a step in the right direction, but it's still a huge issue. And that's why I think teams like Seattle this year, Philadelphia this year, hell, even San Diego making it were, very, very cool to see, not just because of like certain droughts that happened for, specifically Philly and Seattle, but because it was a change of scenery and it was, a different thing. And so I think you're completely right.
It is a step up from a little over 10 years ago when only 8 teams made the playoffs. Back then it was really bad. And then, you know, they add the wild cards or whatever, and now it's 10 teams. Well, now it's 12, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. Is it? Yeah. 12.
I think it's...
I think it's 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Yeah, 12. Okay. So, you know, it's certainly a step up, but at the end of the day, you know what I'm expecting to happen here, Casey, is I'm expecting, and I'm getting way ahead of where we're supposed to be on this stream, but I'm expecting the Yankees, Astros, Braves, and Dodgers to come out of the division series. I'm expecting the exact same fucking thing as last year, because that's what this league is. It's the biggest markets always being the most competitive teams. And I'll tell you, when it gets to that point, I'm turning it off. I don't care. I'm not watching a single World Series game. I don't care. It's not fun. It's not fun for me. It's not fun for half of America. It's not good. It's a broken league. And I'll just leave it at that. You know, it adds an excitement factor when you expand the playoff field. But what does it do for those teams that sneak in those wild cards at the end of the day? You expect those teams to just magically pull a World Series trophy out of their ass by the end of October? It doesn't work like that. So I'll just leave it at that. Let's move on to the actual ALDS preview, even though I prematurely already gave my picks. We'll go to Philadelphia and Braves, right? Phillies, you know, this was day one of the division series. The Phillies beat the Braves. Can you believe that? The best of 5 series. The Phillies won like 7-6. They're a hungry team. They're a surprising team. Don't care. Braves are still going to win this series. What do you think, Casey?
Yeah, well, I mean, when the Phillies were up 7-1, I was like, wow, that's crazy. And then, you know, the lead starts to seep away a little bit. And honestly, I think the Braves outplayed them when it was all said and done, given that they were almost able to come back. I know they lost, but for all I care, it's a 5-game series. It means nothing. So I absolutely agree. I think the Braves are probably the best team at coming back in not just in individual games, but in, you know, the lead in divisions and whatnot. I mean, they were able to overtake the Mets, who were almighty as ever. And so I think, yeah, I got the Braves. Give me them in 4. You know, I think it could go to 5. I don't know. Like you said, it's very hard for me to see a team like the Braves where like almost every position is either a all-star or a brink of an all-star. They have probably the brightest future too, having like locked up all their stars. They are hungry. They are in it to win it. I know they won it last year, and their pitching staff is great as well. I know Max Fried didn't do great today, but man, I know the Phillies were good. I'm not going to discredit anything the Phillies did today, but they almost blew a 6-run lead, and you know I feel like that's dangerous. So yeah, give me the Braves in 4.
San Diego, Los Angeles. This is a division rivalry, so it is very possible that the Padres can pull off an upset, but I'm not buying it. Give me the Dodgers in 4. Give me the Dodgers in 4. Padres had a very, very good opportunity today to overtake the Dodgers, and they couldn't do it. There was one inning I was watching. It was 5-3 at the time. The Padres get 2 guys on base, no outs. Guy comes up, strikes out. Will Myers then comes up, grounds into double play. Nothing. Get no runs, and that just kind of kills the momentum. And when you have a team like the Dodgers where the pitching staff is elite, the offense is elite, who's going to keep up with them, honestly? Maybe the Astros, Yankees, Braves, same 4 teams. Same 4 teams. So, yeah, give me the Dodgers in this one. It's not even really going to be close. San Diego had their moment. Beating the Mets was their World Series in this playoff.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like whenever we see these two teams play, it's expected to be exciting. Of course, they played each other in 2020. We all know what happened with that in the same exact series. Give me the Dodgers in 3, honestly. I you know, like you said, it's exciting for the Padres. They're a team that is, you know, sort of the Dodgers' little brother, besides the Angels, I guess, you know, in recent memory. And, you know, it's no disrespect to the Padres. I hope they win, but I just don't think anyone you know, maybe the Braves in the National League is the only team capable, but I don't think anyone can take down the Dodgers. They're the best team in baseball. They're, you know, I don't see them. Yeah, they're not losing to the Padres. I don't even think they're going to lose an individual game. I have this going a clean sweep. Yeah, like today, you said this today. They had their moment. I think this was the closest they'll get to beating them. But yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate that it's going to probably be the same Final Four as it's been, except for 2020, I guess. But it was I guess it would have been one off. I guess the Rays would have replaced the Yankees if we're going off of that. But 2019, I believe it's the same, right? 2019? No, Nationals. Very
Nationals. Yeah, but the point stands. The point stands.
Yeah.
It's consistently the same big market teams. Not every year. So that's why the fan bases of these teams will tell you, oh, well, it's not every year. It's damn near every year. It's like you can sit here and whine all you want about how everything's fair and well, my team doesn't win the World Series every year, so it's fair. It's like, okay, well, you're like pretty much guaranteed a shot at the semifinal every year, so
yeah,
F off. Anyways, so we got Houston and Seattle. If there were to be an upset of any series, this is where I see it coming, because Seattle displayed a really nice offense in the wild card, and they displayed it again today in Game 1 against the Astros. I mean, they blew a lead. Whoop-de-doo. Are we surprised? It's the Astros. They always win. They always win on walk-offs, always win in the playoffs. Just the way things go. This is Major League Baseball. Don't expect anything different. So we have Seattle and Houston. I've got Houston again in 4. I'll play it conservatively. I got Houston in 4. Seattle will get 1 win here.
Yeah, definitely fair. I don't think Seattle's going to blow a lead again like they did today. I think they're better than they played today. They were great, like those first 7 innings or so. And the issue is I feel like Robbie Ray is just not consistent enough, and I feel like their pitching, Castillo's probably going to get them the win, honestly, in my opinion. I could see this going to 5 games. I'm on the fence between 4 and 5 just because Houston's the best team in the American League for a reason. I hate to say it, I think they're probably have the best shot in the American League and to go to the World Series. Like I said, I think this could be an upset as well. But I'm going to take Houston in 5. I'm going to say it's going to be a very interesting series. I don't, I wouldn't, I wouldn't normally say okay, Seattle will probably only win 1, if that, but I don't think their pitching is going to be as bad as it was today in the bullpen, at least. I think they can win 2 games. I know it's a division rivalry, sort of like the San Diego LA series. So, the records honestly don't really matter as much, but I think it's, this is Houston's series. I hate to say it, it's going to be really tough seeing Houston go on to the championship series, but that's sort of the reality. It's been that way for years, I feel, at this point. I mean, 2017, they made it to the championship series. Did they make it in 2018? I don't know. Did they? I don't remember.
Who?
The Astros.
2018?
The championship. I know the Red Sox obviously won the World Series, and then 19 they made it to the World Series and lost. 20 they made it to the ALCS. 21 lost the World Series. I mean, the Astros.
2018 I feel ALCS was Astros Boston. So
yeah, exactly. Case in point, I feel like their floor is the ALCS. They for the past it's 5 years now at this point. Haven't I guess including this.
We have the last interesting playoff was, by the way, 2016 when the AL Championship Series was the Blue Jays and the Indians. So cherish that because that ain't ever gonna happen again. We've had Astros made it in 2017. It was Astros Yankees, Astros Red Sox, then Astros Yankees again. And then Astros Rays, that was, shortened season, a little bit of a Cinderella story there. Oh, well. Then you have Astros Red Sox again last year. And then you're going to get the Astros again this year. I can almost certainly guarantee it. It's been the same story every year since 2017.
It's their floor. They're not, they won't settle for the DS. It's just how it works. Right.
So, next and last, Cleveland and New York. Cleveland, in my opinion, is a very, very slight upgrade of a team than the Rays. I think they're very slightly better than the Rays, and I think that was displayed beautifully in the wild card round here. Both offenses were terrible. Both pitching staffs were amazing. Only difference is that Cleveland was able to gather those couple of extra runs. Their offense were just barely able to get over that hump, and they displayed They showcased that they were better than the Rays offense. That's all that was. So, if this were the Rays and Yankees, this is a divisional matchup, so anything could happen. I could see the Rays potentially pulling off an upset in 5. But the difference is that Cleveland doesn't play in New York every other series throughout the year. So give me New York in a sweep here.
Definitely fair. Yeah, I mean, I didn't really think about it that way. Like, they are really just a little bit of an upgrade if you think about it. I mean, their pitching is great in certain respects. It wasn't great tonight. The Yankees are not like their brother Mets. Like, they're not going to settle for an easy loss here. I think similar to the Astros, I feel like the ALCS is almost like their floor, even though they haven't reached the ALCS in 3 years. I feel like the Yankees, they've had a historic season. Aaron Judge, breaking the American League home run record, and I just think it would be wrong for me to even really give Cleveland any sort of a chance here. They, sort of a team, in my opinion, that kind of just snuck in. They were, lucky. They had a bad division. You put the Guardians in any other division, they're not, probably making the playoffs at all or even having a shot at it. Maybe they have a wild card shot, but that's irrelevant. I think the Yankees, I have to agree with you. I think they're going to sweep. Today was just a pretty boring game where, 1 run for Cleveland. That's like, 3 games in a row for them that they've scored 2 runs or less in the playoffs, of course. Their offense isn't doing anything either, really, and I think New York's going to take this easy.
Absolutely agreed, and we're both on the same page here. It's the 4 big markets leading the way here. We have Atlanta, New York, the Astros, and the Dodgers. Whoop-de-doo. I actually just realized that I went 0 for 4 on my wild card predictions. That's because it's the wild card. This is where magic can happen, okay? But past the wild card, it's pretty predictable from here. So,
yeah.
With that, if you have any closing words, Casey, go ahead and get those out.
Yeah, well, I did go 1 for 4, not to one up you or anything, but I picked Cleveland, so
yeah, I mean, you didn't have the bias like I did, so it's very, very fair. You did one up me.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it's a disappointment that, it's a lot of teams here that, obviously nothing, has happened yet that we can, close the door on any miracle story. We very well could have Seattle, Cleveland, San Diego, and Philadelphia in the championship series. It could happen, but I think based on analytics, based on history, it's probably going to be those same 4 teams. And I think of course, MLB isn't rigged. MLB isn't, trying to put these teams in because of ratings. But like we talked about in great detail earlier, these 4 teams getting in is kind of ruining the game. It's been ruining the game for a while because of the lack of.
And just to clarify, it's not because it's these teams specifically. It's because of the salary cap. That's all we're saying. That's all we're saying.
Yeah. Like, a salary cap or floor, for that matter, or both, would allow a lot more, different teams to have shots. And I think, it's unfortunate if that does become the outcome. Like I said, we could have some upsets. I'm not going to rule that out, but man, we'll see. But, it was good.
Yeah. So with that being said, I suppose I'll see you again next week, Casey, for the ALCS, NLCS preview, where we will then predict the Astros and the Dodgers to meet in the World Series. So
exactly.
Until then, let us know what you think is going to happen in the playoffs in the comment section below. And I'll just say this right now. You talk about the Cinderella stories, you're not ruling any out. There's no goddamn chance in hell that Cleveland Guardians are going to win the World Series this year. I'm just going to say that right now. They got 0 shot. So, with that, we will see you in a bit. Thank you for watching. We appreciate your support on these videos. We'll catch you in the next one. Goodbye.